You're listening to We're All Gonna Die Anyway with Jess Wiener. Don't worry. This is a joyful podcast about life, death, and everything in between. Okay, y'all, I have experienced firsthand the incredible power and passion of High School Musical, the series fans. I don't know if you caught my episode with Josh Bassett, who is one of the stars of that show. He plays Ricky on that show. We had a wonderful conversation that I think ignited a lot of dialogue in that fan community and beyond that fan community about what it means to live a good life. And you're never too young to be asking yourself that question. Like, you want to make a life that you love on your own terms. That's the whole point of being here. And so a lot of questions, a lot of curiosity, a lot of talk about spirituality and mental health. So I'm so excited to keep those conversations going. I sort of teased at the time that Josh may not be my only guest from that series. And today I'm so excited to have two more incredible performers from that show join me as guests today. I'm talking about Joe Serafini and Frankie Rodriguez. And I had a chance to meet Joe and Frankie, again, when I went to the set for High School Musical in Utah, and I had a chance to work with the whole cast. And Joe and Frankie and I had a really interesting click, I think, about what it means to be a performer and storyteller today, somebody who gets a public platform to help change the world and change the way people see themselves in the world. And so you know that Frankie, by playing the role of Carlos, is really making history and raising visibility by playing the first openly gay character on a Disney series. There is nothing short of fantastic about that. I'm so proud of him and this show and all of the young people who get to experience that story out in the world right now. And Joe has this wonderful history of performing in his background, but I want to say a special congratulations because this past May, he graduated with his BFA from University of Michigan. He had to do it virtually like a lot of college students across the country, but I'm so proud of you and kudos and congratulations for that. They're just wonderful people. They're living their life on purpose. They care about using this platform to bring forth good in the world. And so I wanted them to come on the show and talk to me about what it was like being a part of this cast and what it was like, most importantly, having the opportunity to speak to young people all over the world about how to really be yourself, how to learn to love yourself, and how to learn to be yourself out in the world. We had to Zoom this interview, of course, because they were quarantining in Utah at the time, but you're going to feel the infectious energy in this Zoom conversation. I can't wait. If you don't know Joe and Frankie, you're in for a real treat. Let's meet them. Let's dig in.
Hi.
This is my first, I guess, post-COVID or in the middle of COVID podcast.
Really?
Yes.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, well, we built this studio in January and we got a little bit of taping in and then we all went into lockdown. And so you are the perfect excuse for me to shower today, do my hair. I put some makeup on.
Literally same. True. I'm not wearing like a collared shirt all of the time.
Yeah. I put jeans on for the first time today in a while. And so that was an experience. But yeah, so we snuck in today in a very, very like social distancing small crew just because I really wanted to have these conversations. And I've been wanting to have you both on to talk about a whole host of things. But we first met because I came to set for High School Musical, the series in Utah. And we did an amazing kind of self-development workshop talking about vision and values and mission statements and all that kind of good stuff. And I just fell in love with you both. I loved your energy and your light. And I love obviously what you're doing on the show. So we'll talk about that, but I loved you. And so as we're doing these series of podcasts and conversations, I wanted to talk with all different kinds of folks, those I know and those that I don't, about some, maybe some deeper topics that feel like it's a good time to talk about that right now in the world.
Yeah, well, we're here. We're ready.
I know. So I'm going to kind of flip back and forth. So I want to hear a little bit more of your sort of origin story. So I know, Joe, you're from Pittsburgh.
Yes.
Born in Pittsburgh?
Yes. Born at West Penn Hospital.
And do you know anything about your birth story? Do you know what your birth was like for your mom?
Well, I know that, so I'm the youngest of four.
Okay.
And growing up, my siblings would always, the thing that they would do, the thing that they would say to insult me was, well, you were an accident. And I was always like, oh my gosh. But then, the stories change as you get older. And my parents did tell me that, yes, I was an accident, but pretty much all of us were accidents except the second daughter. But anyway, I know that whenever my mom found out she was pregnant, my dad was like so upset because he was like, we don't have money to raise a fourth child. Like I think he was really stressed. And I know that she said he left for work in an outrage and she was just crying. And then she always tells this story that one of her best friends at the time, and actually still one of her good friends, Barb, she was like, now watch though, this child is going to be like something special. Like he'll grow up to be like the president of the United States or something. I'm not going to be the president of the United States.
You don't know that, though.
Wait
Wait a minute. I have a really important question. Did nobody talk to your parents about birth control? What was happening?
I have no idea what their like values were or like what they believed in at that time. Such a different time. Like
I know.
Yeah, they're still growing and changing, I find today. So.
And they're still in Pittsburgh. Most of your family's still in Pittsburgh?
Yeah. Well, actually, my other sister, she's a nurse. She's still in Pittsburgh. Then my second sister, she is also an actress that lived in New York and is moving to LA.
Oh, amazing.
And my brother also lives in LA. So we're all kind of all over the place.
Oh my gosh. And Frankie, where were you born?
I was born in Selma, California, which is right next to Fresno. So just to make things easy, I just say I'm from Fresno.
And what do you know about your birth story?
It's so funny because it's so similar. I'm also the youngest of three.
Okay.
And, my mom had her boy and the girl, and then along came me. And my aunt tells a story that when they found out that my mom was pregnant, my dad just like sat on the stoop and just like was so upset. But yeah, so it's very similar. It's just kind of funny. I didn't know that.
You didn't?
No.
Wait, so does any of that like mess with your psyche when you're a kid and you hear like the reaction that from your parents weren't like, I can't wait for this kid?
Personally, I'm always like, well, I'm here. So like I
deal with it
as like a harsh thing because they just had no idea what I was going to be,
Right.
But
yeah.
I mean, not for me. I know my mom said that when I was born, I just never stopped crying. And she was like, and then you cried until you were 14, which is so true. I was the biggest crybaby, but
fair. We had a lot of feelings.
I know, right? I don't know.
I'm with you on that. So if you guys could go back and think about your childhood, like Joe, what would be like 3 words that you would use to describe your childhood?
Wow. 3 words.
Just off the top of your head.
I'd say it was fun. It was creative. And it was like simple. Like when I look back, I don't feel like I had like a very complicated childhood.
That's interesting. What does that mean? Tell me more about that.
Like, I mean, I just didn't really struggle, at least the way I remember it, the way I look back on it is I don't think that I struggled like socially or academically. And I was always like working on some show. Like I was a child actor and I started performing professionally at 7. So I was consistently thrown into these groups of adults that were professional actors. And I kind of grew up faster, I think, because I was thrown into those situations.
That definitely grows you up.
Yeah. And just exposed to like so many things that I think other kids where I was from were not being exposed to.
Yeah. Was that your choice in being an actor? Was that something you were drawn to, something you were encouraged to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, to both or what?
No, I mean, honestly, like my parents never pushed or tried to, I mean, I tried every sport, I tried everything, but they always really let me do whatever I wanted to do. And if I wanted to play piano, they encouraged that, and I started playing piano. And then
that's amazing.
I'm very grateful to them for that.
What kind of lives did your mom and dad lead? Like, what are they up to in the world?
My mom is pretty much a stay-at-home mom. She like works temporarily at a attorney's office, but like it's not a crazy job. And then my dad, he works at PNC Bank in
Interesting.
Pittsburgh.
And are they musical at all?
My dad sang in a band in high school.
Amazing.
And he sang in church growing up. We would always see him singing in church.
So they were really encouraging of your interest and passion.
Yeah, for sure.
I love that. Frankie, what about you? Were you a child actor also?
No, I was like very far from, I didn't even know like you could be a child actor.
Really?
I grew up in a very religious household. So a part of that was not growing up with television. So we didn't get a television into my house until I think I was like 12.
Wow.
So I grew up with a very different mindset of what you could do, but it's very similar. Like we always had to be in some type of music lesson. That's one thing my mom was big on. So if it wasn't like piano lessons, we were in voice lessons, or just we had to have some activity outside of school. And then they tried Taekwondo on me. And then I think my mom was like, this is not for you. But I think she definitely recognized that I was theatrical, and thank God for her, because she found like the summer youth kids program. And that's kind of where it all started, where I was like, whoa.
So if you could think of your childhood in 3 words, what would they be?
I would say musical, colorful, and dramatic.
And dramatic. Tell me more about dramatic.
No one in my family, like my whole family, has ever pursued entertainment. So I think I was just like a breed all on my own, where I was just like, everything was a stage to me. So I was ready to serve drama.
So I want to talk about that, because I think in this way we're sort of kindred spirits. I wasn't a child actor, but I fell in love with performing as a kid. I mean, I think I would have if I would have had the opportunity. But I remember the story goes in my house, I grew up in Miami, and the story goes that like about 18 months or so old, I was watching like TV with my mom and asked her why I wasn't on TV. Like I saw some like baby or kid on TV, and I was like, why isn't that me? So clearly I was an ambitious little child, but I feel like when people look at me now as like a businesswoman and an entrepreneur and the things that I do, I always tell them that the seed of why I think I have been successful is my early childhood in the arts, is in performing, I went to all performing arts schools. So I went to like my middle school and high school. I went to the high school for performing arts in Miami, and then, majored in it in college as well. But I feel like that arts education is something really special, actually. And I mean, maybe different for you guys. When I was growing up, that was sort of frowned upon as, a field, obviously, to go into or a place to go and study. But for me, it was life-giving. I mean, truly, I think it saved my life as a kid.
Yeah. I mean, I would 100% agree.
Why do you think that is? Like, what do you think for you? I mean, you talked about your life as being simple. Frankie's definition was dramatic, but tell me a little bit about, if you could look back now on you're still in your younger part of your lives, but as you look back and reflect, what was it about that opportunity, Joe, that like really taught you more about who you were, or like brought you into who you are?
Honestly, I still think like you said, we are still young. I feel like I'm still figuring out who I am and what I bring. But, as a child, I wasn't really like thinking much about it. I was just doing what I liked to do, and kind of unapologetically so. And I think also that comes from like being the youngest in the family. Like, I watched what all my older siblings were doing, and my parents, I think, were also kind of burnt out by then. That like I had to figure out a lot of stuff on my own, and I was like pretty self-sufficient. But I think just being interested in performing arts and being in front of an audience and learning to interact with people in a collaborative setting is just so valuable to me in learning how to just interact with people in general. Like I feel like in terms of just social awareness, I learned it so early on that it was carry on.
Frankie, how did you come to do this work now? I mean, you're obviously both in this new series, but from you growing up without a TV in your house until 12 years old, what was it like when the TV then is in your house? Like, how does your world expand outside of the music classes you were in to even imagine that this is a path that you could pursue?
Yeah. So I think it honestly didn't come until I was a senior in college. So my entire plan was after I graduated high school, I said, I don't want to go back to school. I kind of just want to take a break and I'll just work and I'll figure out what I want to do. And I think subconsciously, I just had always thought that most of my family works in education. So I thought, well, I'll just get a teaching degree and I'll just at some point just end up a teacher. And I kind of just thought that's the path that I would go on. And it wasn't until I was a senior in college and I went to a performing arts college that we would get a lot of industry guests, whether it was an agent or manager or casting director. And I noticed that a lot of my feedback was pretty positive and just they were all very supportive. And I was like, well, what if I just tried it? I'm just going to try it. And then I saw one of the first people I saw on television that I directly knew. I was just like, what did you do? Like, how did you get there? And he said, it just takes time. He said, it takes about a good 5 years. And I was like, okay. So I told myself after graduation, I was going to give myself 5 years. And if I wasn't on television in 5 years, then I was just going to move back home. And luckily it came a lot quicker than that. So I was
Amazing.
just like, well, if someone's crazy enough to cast me, they'll cast me again. So I was like, I just got to keep going.
That's incredible. Will you guys talk a little bit? I don't know this, so apologies if you do a lot of this in some of your press interviews. But Joe, because I know Tim Federle is also from Pittsburgh, and I know you had a connection with Tim prior to the show. But I want to know your casting stories. I want to know what happened when you're brought into this legacy show, imagined by Tim and this incredible, new story that's going to be told for this generation of High School Musical fans. But I want to know the moment of click, I guess, into when you got cast for the show.
Okay, me first.
Yeah.
Okay. So I originally, so it's funny, I got an Instagram direct message from casting, and they were like, hey, Tim told us to reach out to you. We want you to audition for EJ. So I originally auditioned for EJ and kind of forgot about it. Never heard anything. And then months later was asked to audition for Seb. And I got it in literally less than a week. And it was so quick, just videotape submissions. And I think I got the request on a Saturday, filmed it on a Sunday. Then I retaped with notes on Monday, and then Wednesday they told me I got it, and I flew out that Friday.
Whoa.
So really, really a quick life change.
And you were in college at this point when this happens.
Yeah, that was in my junior year.
And so what goes through your mind and what kind of conversations do you have when this becomes real?
I mean, literally, well, while I had been sending videos back and forth, I was talking with the chair of our musical theater department, Vince Cardinal, and he was kind of giving me advice and saying, just keep doing it and just see what happens. Who knows? We'll figure it out if it happens. And then when I got it, he was like, okay. And then it was also still uncertain how much I would be in the show. So for all I knew, I was just flying out for the first episode, and then I might fly out again. But really, I was only going to be gone that I knew of for 2 weeks. So I was still a full-time student. And then when I came back and I realized I was going to start going out more, he sat down with me and helped me figure out how to remain a full-time student so I could keep my scholarship and also still get graded as a full-time student and finish that semester. Wow. So all I had to do was just drop a few dance classes because you can't miss dance.
Right.
And most of my teachers were really helpful in coordinating how I can keep up with my studies while I was away and back and away and back.
I imagine too, it's quite exciting for them as a program. I mean, the school that you went to and, has a tremendous reputation for musical theater. And I think also the fact that you're sort of able to manifest this experience while you're a student is kind of like a dream for every college drama kid out there, right? That
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so, yeah. And it's a different story. I mean, I want to tell it and also want to be fully aware that not everybody has that exact opportunity.
No, yeah, I feel extremely, extremely lucky.
Yeah, that's incredible. And Frankie, how did your casting happen?
I mean, it's very similar. When I first heard it, I think it was, I guess, like 2.5 years ago now, there was a Deadline article that came out that said High School Musical was going to be turned into a TV series. And I remember sending that article to my agent at the time, and I was like, I want to go in for this. And I got a sassy reply back, but it wasn't until later, when the show was actually in development and actually started casting, I just got that email that was like, you have an appointment tomorrow. And I remember I confirmed before I even read the breakdown or whatever that email said. I was like, I will be there. And it was so quick. I think it was a matter of 3 weeks from the first audition to the actual casting. And in between, I think I had a total of 5 auditions, but it was so quick. And it's just a weird experience.
Can I dig into that for a second? Because I'm trying to put myself in your shoes, or I'm just thinking about anybody listening who has a dream or a desire or a goal and then puts themselves out there for it, right? Is studying for it or is networking for it. And then it happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to know if you can even remember the moment where you were like sort of reconciling that you got a job, and that you got a job, Frankie, let's say for something that you saw, then you asked to get submitted for, I mean, like, I'm just curious if you had any moments of like not feeling like you were worthy enough, like doubting it, like freaking out, or was it just, I mean, I'm just curious. It doesn't have to be that, but I'm just curious what the processing felt like.
It's definitely an interesting process, because I know it's as exciting as it is. I don't have a lot of people in my circle that have gone through a similar experience.
Sure.
It's hard to know how excited to be, or like how nervous to be, because you don't have anyone to like ask. But I remember, I mean, it was just something that I had told myself and other people for about 2 years. I was like, I want to be a series regular. And that's just what I said over and over and over again. And, they always say right place, right time, right character. And it like everything just aligned that way. So when it happened, I still haven't processed it, I don't think. When you see your face on the side of a bus, it's still kind of like, but is that me? It's it's a weird experience. I don't know.
It's probably very surreal.
Yeah, it's a little, I don't know. It's weird to live in it.
Yeah.
What about you, Joe? What did it feel like for you?
Well, I had been, I was just in school. I was not really ready to jump out and go into the real world that quickly. I always say, school isn't for everyone. Some people don't need to go and they're just ready to jump in, but I needed those 4 years to cook. And for that to just not be existent, like to just jump out and go do a real professional job was, thrilling, but also terrifying.
Of course.
And I still am learning so much every day on it. And I think I also have found that with this new job, I am able to reevaluate my own goals and my own aspirations, because forever it's kind of just been, I want to go to school at Michigan and then go and be on Broadway. And I was like, that was like a loose just idea of what I would go for.
Yeah.
And this show happens and it's the best of both worlds. You're on TV, but you're also performing musical theater. Yeah. It's just like a dream.
Yeah.
And then now with that being a window opened, it's like, well, now I can see myself doing other television stuff. And I get to see more for myself than I did before.
Has your family and friends been along for this journey? Or a lot of folks that I talk to who have success a little younger in their lives, or who transfer from, one kind of life to another, talk about sometimes the loss of friends or family members, or, people not quite understanding the world that you're living in now.
Yeah. No one really has, I haven't lost anyone, I wouldn't say, but I know when I first was offered the job, my parents both were like, but do you actually want to do this? I mean, you've been training to, do live theater. It's not like you've never really expressed that this was something you would want to do. And I was like, no, this is what I'm going to school for, is to be an actor, whether it be on television or on the stage. I mean, I want to be an actor in general. So I think they just needed to hear that I was interested in it before they were like fully behind it. But even now, I think they're still catching up to what exactly it is. And I don't think even I understand the magnitude of this job.
Yeah. Or the property that you stepped into. I mean, it's such a legacy property for Disney Channel and now Disney Plus.
Yeah. And yeah, they love it though. They're so excited. And my siblings especially are like so obsessed.
They are.
Mm-hmm.
Frankie, how's your family been?
I mean, they love it. I have just so many videos of them just like dancing to all of like our songs from like YouTube and stuff. But I don't really know how like they process it because I've never asked. And when I talk to them, they always play it cool. Okay. But I find out from other people, like family, friends, just how excited they are. But they definitely don't always show that to me. So they definitely play it cool, but I know they're just incredibly excited.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things too. I imagine as like a family member, parent, whatever, sibling, it's like just a fantasy that then becomes a reality. Like, I don't know unless you're living in it, if you really, or if you're like a super stage parent, maybe you've been like having this experience. But I think that like to watch your child achieve something that they want to achieve, regardless of what it is, whether it's playing a sport or being in a show or, going to science camp, whatever it is, I imagine that there's such like tremendous joy and pride in just watching you be happy and learning something new. When we were together doing some of our workshop in Utah, what I was really struck with, because your cast is quite extraordinary. I mean, I think, and I've worked with they are amazing. I've worked with a number of different casts at Disney. I've worked with them for quite some time. And your group was like so, I kind of don't want to like use so many like superlatives, but it was soulful for a young cast, right? It's like there's a lot of life that was in that room, a lot of living, a lot of different experiences. And I only imagine that that's what makes this show so successful, I think, and so relevant to today's time. But one of the things that one of the things that I remember us kind of like talking a little bit about was you're still in this like youthful swirl of social media and the world that kind of puts limitations and labels and boxes and expectations. Like, you're not exempt from that. In fact, maybe you're even more under the microscope because you have an elevated job that people are paying attention to and you're great at it. So there's going to be haters, or there's going to be, whatever. Or maybe there's not for you guys because you're so delicious. But like, what I'm saying? Like, I feel like, so I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about how you also, because it sounds like you're both very well adjusted. You've got good support systems. You have passion that helped drive you to this place. You've got talent, clearly. What are some of the life skills that you're learning, though, as young adults, navigating a professional job, relationships, like responsibilities that for other folks your age, it's a lot, or it can be a lot. And you're under the microscope of having a public job and a high profile career.
I think for me, just handling everything, both with like adult responsibilities and then also a new job, I felt like I was just ready for it. And I feel like that's why it came to me, because I mean, we have our youngest cast member is 16 years old, and she's amazing. Like, I mean, even like they're all amazing, just the professionalism and the talent, but then also the like, wonderful personalities that they bring.
I learned from them.
Yeah,
they're amazing.
But I would not have been able to do that at that age. I would not have been ready. I would not have had the professionalism. I would not have had what they have built. So I just think that I definitely needed those buffer years of kind of getting, stumbling a lot. But now I feel like, I don't know, I just felt like I was ready for it.
Okay. That's fair. Joe, what about you? What are you learning in this life?
It's interesting because I feel like when I got to school, I started learning so much about, when I got to college, I learned so much more about the world, in everything, everyone, in everyone's different paths. Whereas I came from a very suburban white neighborhood, to be frank. And I still am learning more and more about everyone's different experiences. But I think the thing that I'm learning lately has been how to use the platform that we're given, and be an ally to those that we need to be allies to, and also being that we are an LGBT couple on a Disney channel, a Disney Plus original series, I feel like brings responsibility to that community. And I'm figuring out how best to, advocate for things that I believe in, but also not be too much. I don't know. It's hard to find the balance. And I think I'm still finding that balance of, just sharing fluff that's just people like to see about me in my life, while also promoting the things that I believe in and the things that I value.
Who do you go to for counsel on that is it to each other? Is it to other friends? Like who do you go to for gut checks to be like, am I giving away too much? Am I like, oversharing, which we all tend to do in this platform, or are you falling into some sort of like, I don't know, even for me, and I'm obviously like not anywhere in the same generation as you, but this is a newer field for me. The performative nature of social media is exhausting.
Yes, 100%.
And so I can't imagine like you're a performer and then you've got this second job, which is you promote and market what you do on social media. How are you navigating that? Or who do you talk to about that if you're trying to get a gut check on your relationship to that?
We definitely talk to each other.
Yeah.
I talk to like my closest friends from home that know me at like the core.
Yeah.
And that they're able to say, yeah, you don't need to do that. Or yeah, maybe you could, maybe that's not so bad. Or, I don't know. What do you?
I mean, I have and just so funny, like the other day I literally FaceTimed my friend Curry and I was like, if I'm ever annoying on social media, please let me know. And he was like, Frankie, you never post. I was like, that's so funny that you say that, because I feel like on my end, it's every single day, between all of like the social media platforms. So it's just so funny that in my head, I feel like I'm putting myself out there all the time where it might be too much. And then other people are just like, you never do it. So I don't know. It is a weird balance because it is performing in a way. But no, to answer your question, I just have my friends that I run things by, and I feel like they're a good support system.
I'm happy that it sounds like they're able to tell you the real truth and cut through the shit a little bit.
Yes, thank God.
We all need people like that. Let's talk about as you're building this career. This is why I was excited to talk to you as well, as like two young men in this world following your dreams, but you're building a career and you are forging a legacy, I think, in the characters that you're playing right now. But I can only imagine that you're inspiring and affecting young people who are looking at this relationship on TV and in this like classic, network and channel, and and they're getting a chance to see a version of life that wasn't available not very long ago. Like, what does that weigh on you? Is that exciting for you? Like, I'm curious where you intersect with that.
I mean, yeah. I mean, of course, it's so exciting, and it's such an honor to be a part of not only just the franchise, but just, such an important plot line to the franchise.
Yeah.
But we were watching Schitt's Creek the other day, and the gay storyline, or not even the gay storyline, just his love interest on that. I was like, I've never seen this on television. As an adult, I've never watched this. I said, and, I can't even imagine what's someone who's 10 years old is watching High School Musical and thinking, like, I'm sure it's just so exciting.
It still, like you said, it totally weighs on me. And I feel like I said, I feel like there comes with it a responsibility to, do it right.
Yeah.
I mean, what he was saying about Schitt's Creek, it's one thing to see a gay couple on television. I grew up watching Glee, and I saw characters, but it was so, I don't know, it wasn't as
it was a little more heightened world.
It was more, it wasn't as real as the relationships that you see between a male and a female,
right,
on television. So
I know my husband and I, like, we watch Schitt's Creek and just literally sob. I mean, Simply the Best. I'm just gonna be a spoiler.
So
Nope.
spoil.
Sorry, everybody should be watching it right now. But like that moment for me was like, I mean, I was sobbing just to see, because it's a love story. It's a love story, period, full stop. And I actually, that's what I love about how your show is handling this relationship too. It's a relationship, full stop. Mm-hmm. There's no needing to qualify. And I know that I'm going to talk to Tim on this show as well. I mean, I know that that's intentional and it's creative and it's leader led, but it is for me remarkable in what I think we can continue to do with content and stop qualifying people in certain ways and just show stories to be stories.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, agreed. I mean, it's like, yeah, I don't know.
It's amazing.
Getting those scripts is so exciting.
So I read something, and I want to make sure that this is true, but I read, Frankie, as I was like kind of doing my recon on you. I want to talk about your bike rides to the library.
Oh my gosh.
I love that.
Okay.
I love that too, because we're talking about your support systems and we're talking about how you're playing these incredible characters and you're making new reality for people. But also in your journey, you rode a bike to the library to check out Broadway soundtracks, right? Yes. And there was a librarian who took notice of that.
Yes. So
can you tell us about that?
Yeah. And honestly started with, my mom and I, well, all of her kids, we did like a weekly library visit. And that was our time to like check out what we wanted. And I remember I loved Dr. Seuss, and I found the Seussical soundtrack. Mm-hmm. And I was like, what is this? I've never heard of this before. And that really started the whole thing of, I was like, oh, they're putting movies on stage and they put like TV shows on stage. So it was very interesting thing for me to figure out. And so I just started checking out all of these cast recordings, and I was just like, oh my God, I love these things. Like, what is this? What is Broadway? And I remember I would check out like a stack of them. And one of the librarians there, he definitely caught on to what I was doing. And then so he would start ordering or requesting titles from other branches so that I would always have something new to check out. And as I was checking out, he'd be like, but before you go, have you listened to Phantom of the Opera? This is the original cast recording. It's Sarah Brightman. And like, I would get like,
wow.
And I was just like, okay, got it. So I'm very thankful for him because he helped me build my library and knowledge of this musical theater world.
Do you ever keep in touch with him? Do you know how to get in contact with him?
I mean, no, I really should try though. I really should.
I mean, honestly, that's for me what I love. That talk about planting a seed and not being there to watch what happens.
Yeah.
Like he really did. That was such a beautiful, like Broadway godparent kind of thing.
God bless those people.
Honestly. So I want to talk, Joe, a little bit about, because, you know, obviously like the reason I wanted to have these conversations with people, and I'm talking to people at all different stages of their lives. Obviously you're in your, God willing, your beginning thrust of your lifetime. But as I was, you know, coming up with this title for the show, unfortunately, like I've had this title for a while, right? We're all going to die anyway, because it's true. There's like two truths, right? We're all born and we're all going to die. And then how we spend our time in the middle is really, I think, quite remarkable. It's where we're learning all of these things. And so I wanted to talk about loss, not just in death, like physical death, but loss like in moments or milestones. And here we are, we're doing this. We have to do this via Zoom because we're in the middle of a pandemic. We're recording this now in May of 2020, and we've been on lockdown for over 2 months. And you missed graduating from college, like the physical act of graduating from college. And I know that Frankie here threw you a surprise graduation. Is that right?
Yes. He's the best.
It was adorable. But I want to talk about that moment. And I also want to talk about like how you or your peers that are going through this time right now are navigating that milestone, not being able to be achieved in person, I guess, at this time. And like, does that play a story on you? You know, is that something you're taking in stride? Like, I'm curious because these are seminal moments in our life trajectory.
Yeah. It was definitely a big bummer for me because when I left school, like officially to go do season 2, and I was like literally done attending classes, I did my first semester of senior year this past fall.
Okay.
And then I was like, all right, I'm gonna go and do season 2. I finished all my requirements. I had like one paper to finish. And then my plan, when I said bye to my friends, it was kind of like, yeah, I'll see you guys in May when I come back for graduation. Like I knew that I was getting those days off in my contract. So whenever we found out that it was just canceled, it was like, wow, like what do I even do? I'm not going to get to have that final hurrah with my peers that I spent 4 years with. I mean, granted, I was back and forth the last 2, but it was definitely a huge bummer because those people really become your family. You get to see each other fail and you get to see each other win. And it is definitely a bummer that we didn't get to have that final exclamation point on the whole experience.
Yeah.
But, we had a big Zoom call with our parents, and, I think as soon as we get the opportunity, we'll definitely have a chance to celebrate
it
in person and all together. But, it is, I feel so unbelievably lucky that I'm in the position that I'm in, where I have a job that, God willing, as you say, is gonna return, and we will be back, and I have a job in this industry. And to know that I have friends, and also any college student graduating, not even in our industry, but entering a field that is just ridden with loss and just it's horrible right now. like it really is just like a shit show.
I know. Do you guys talk about that with your peers right now? Like, are you all talking about like, what is this world becoming? Like, I'm just curious how your generation is thinking about what's happening for us right now.
One of my close friends from school, she was a year above me. She had just started her run as Anna in Broadway. She was like the first replacement. And they just announced that they're not going to be reopening after, whenever Broadway does reopen, they will not reopen. And I just feel so sad for her. I mean, she just started. But in talking to other friends that have been dealing with, I don't know why I told that story. I think it was just like an anecdote that mattered to me. But my friends that are, still in Ann Arbor, just living in their apartments, everyone seems to kind of just be taking it in stride and, taking it for what it is, and just trusting that whatever is going to happen for them will happen. And, there's not much we can control.
No, not for sure. Frankie, what about you and your family and your friends? How's everybody doing during this process?
I mean, everyone seems to be doing well. I do try to check in a lot, and they also do the same. I apologize. I'm like, I'm sorry. I keep saying this is so crazy. I was like, it's only because this is just so crazy.
Right.
And I just have nothing else to say because it's just, like your whole world within one day is just completely changed.
I know.
So it's a little hard to wrap my head around. And I told Joe the other day, I was like, it's weird because we're back in Salt Lake City now. I was like, it's weird to feel homesick. And yes, we can go back to Los Angeles, but it's not the LA that I know. So it's just kind of like, I don't know. It's like mourning, I don't know, your city, which sounds so bizarre, but
it's homesick for home that isn't existing right now.
Yeah. I think that makes total sense. I mean, we're all in sort of a limbo, and not just LA or Salt Lake, but the entire world, which is really rare. Usually we're empathizing with another city or community that might be going through something, but we're kind of remaining in normalcy, and we don't have that right now, right? We're all disrupted. We all were like running 100 miles an hour in the way we normally run, and then boom, that train stopped. We all got bumped off, and then, we're trying to figure out when the next train comes. And I think I was talking to somebody earlier, I was describing this time as like the Great Reset. Like it's this moment, and I don't mean it to be like I'm sitting home writing the novel, because I'm not, but I do feel like it is a chance to be introspective and to think about what wasn't working before that you don't have to take back in to re-entry. And so I'm curious if you guys have been thinking about that. Like, what maybe had your lives been like prior, that when we do, let's say, resume whatever is some sense of normalcy, like what would you like to shift or change or make different during this time? Like, what's coming up for you?
Oh, do you want to speak?
No, go.
I was actually going to say that is a silver lining about it all, is that, we are able to take this time and really spend time with ourselves in finding what is going to fulfill us with all this time on our hands, just at home. Personally, I've been finding that I want to have a structure to my day. And so I think coming back, if I can make structures to my days off instead of just kind of doing whatever I feel, although those days are important, I think having a structure of like waking up at a certain time and having a routine in your morning, and that has been really helpful to me.
Yeah.
Personally, I've been finding ways to incorporate that.
That's important for sure. Frankie, what about you?
I think my appreciation, I would like to take back into when we resume my appreciation for both my life and the people in my life. And I felt like I did a pretty good job of that before, but it wasn't something I always vocalized, especially to the people around me. But, I really am so lucky and so blessed to be where I am. And, the people around me, I want them to know that, like I'm appreciative of you in my life. And so I think I'll definitely take that when we go back.
Part of the talking about loss, even from a physical realm, is I feel like all of these transition moments are losses, right? Every time we are making a change in our life, even if they're positive, there's always some sort of grieving because we're letting go of something to grab onto something else. But I'm curious if you all had any experiences of physical death or losses in your life that were really profound for you, like somebody that you've known or loved and lost, and like, has that impacted you yet? Because I don't know, at your age, I had already experienced, I think, one big loss that was a friend, and then otherwise like grandparents. But I'm just curious if that's been a part of your story yet in your life.
I've lost 2 grandparents that I grew up with, but I feel like that's coming whenever it happens, especially when it's from old age, that you're able to prepare for it.
Yeah.
And
what were their names?
Ronald, which is actually my middle name.
I love it.
He just passed away actually like a year ago this week.
Oh, wow. Grandpa Ronald. Is that what you called him? What did you call him? Pap.
And then his wife was my Nana. And she passed away when I was in 7th grade, actually, while I was in rehearsals for High School Musical at my middle school.
No way.
Yeah.
And were Pap and Nana really big fans of your performing? Did they come see you in plays?
Yes, of course. I was honestly a little nervous for my Pap to see me in a gay relationship on television, and he passed away before he got to see that.
Did he really?
Yeah, and I never ever told him about my sexuality.
Yeah.
So, and in some way I felt like I didn't want to. I didn't want to make him uncomfortable, and he's just from a different time.
Yeah.
Of course.
Whose parent is he? Mom or dad's?
My dad's dad.
Yeah.
My dad, both were my dad's parents. My mom's parents both died when her dad died before I was born, and I'm named after him, Joe. And then her mom died when I was 3. So
wow.
Yeah.
So these were your grandparents that you really grew up with them, Pap and Nana.
They took care of us whenever my parents couldn't be home.
Grandparents are the best, man. I tell you what, we don't like always appreciate them when we're younger. Cause I remember I've lost all of my grandparents, but my grandpa Michael was he's like my writing angel. Like he's definitely like who I dedicated my first book to. But when I was a little kid and I would always like make up stories, and I would come to tell him the stories orally, and he would be like, you have to write them down. And I'm like, ugh, who wants to write them down? Like, I just want to tell you these stories and go with it. And he'd be like, no, you have to write them down. And so literally when I was getting ready to write my first book, I woke up from a dream in which Grandpa Michael was in my dream telling me to get up and write something down.
Wow.
So I think about, but I didn't appreciate, I think, all the love and goodness that grandparents, if you're lucky enough to have some good ones, can really, really give you. And they watched way too many junior high school plays than probably required to do. But Frankie, what about you? Did you have any significant losses in your life that shaped you?
Yeah, not in my adult life. All of my grandparents passed before I had even graduated high school. So I think in a way I just kind of dealt with that as a kid deals with it. So I don't know how I would do as an adult. I think I would definitely be a bigger of a mess.
Yeah.
Emotionally.
See, I found when my Pat passed away, I don't know if it's just because I wasn't in town to like really deal with it. Like we were in the middle of shooting an episode, that I kind of was able to
like compartmentalize it a bit.
Compartmentalize it and not really. But when I was there, I mean, of course it was such a loss and it was so sad, but you prepare for those moments, I think, and you know that they're coming.
Yeah. It is also, look, you're in a beginning stage of your life and a new discovery stage of your life. And those are kind of passages that are, you're right, like what you said, sort of expected. Frankie, I'd be remiss if I didn't ask like what your grandparents' names were. What did you call them?
So both my dads were both named Manuel.
Oh, how interesting.
And then my one grandma was named Simona and the other grandma was named
Michaela. And then what did you call them?
Just grandma.
Grandpa.
Yeah.
I love that.
They were very feisty.
So when you think about, you know, the reason why I like to talk about death, and that's a weird thing, but I in some ways it normalizes it, because I think it's obviously one thing that's guaranteed. We just don't know when or where or how. And I think there's so much like mystery about it. I guess I'm curious, like as you were kids growing up, and Frankie, you said you grew up in a religious family. I'm curious if that shaped your view of death or the way you thought about death and dying. Like, I'm curious, like how much was talked about, or was it just sort of like this person, you know, they go to heaven, they go to hell. They're like, I'm just curious, like how you framing, how dying or death was framed for you as you guys were kids.
I mean,
bet you no one's asked you that question before.
No, it's a little stumpy. I mean, yeah, I think in a way, yeah, you kind of are taught to be prepared for it. And my family was just very big on, you know, I don't know. It's just so bizarre. Like we just knew, like we were prepared for it. So.
And also, I want to say with both my grandparents that I experienced their passing away as like a coherent individual, you also see them suffering. At least with my grandparents, I saw them suffering up until their last moment. So when they finally let go, it was actually comfort in a way that they were no longer suffering.
Did you see your parents grieve? Like, do you remember watching your parents?
Yes.
That's
the weirdest.
That was weird for me too as a kid. Like, you know, because it becomes really real, because you don't think about necessarily losing your parents, but then you see them reacting like a kid to their parents.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's really, I don't know.
My mom will cry in front of us like all the time. My dad like really, really does not cry in front of us. So when I first saw him cry about my Nana being sick, I was like, what do I do with this? And how do I react to him? How do I hear for him, but also give him a space? I don't know. That was. I
know. Well, you know, it's always a reminder that parents are just kids in big bodies, you know, like we're all just.
As I'm growing up, I'm like, no one knows what they're doing.
By the way, that is 100% true. Nobody knows what we're doing. We're all faking it. We just have different. And the only thing I will say is that it is kind of fun getting older, because some of like the other day I was talking to somebody and I was like, God, like it was some lesson that I'm learning. And I'm like, I wished I would have known this like 20 years ago or whatever, you know? And she said to me, but that is the price you get with wisdom. Like you get to learn things as you grow. Like you have to experience the world a little bit. You've got to take a couple bites from it, and it's got to take a couple bites from you. And like, you're learning and you're earning as you're aging and you're going. And I think like, I don't know, I think for me, you know, the conversations around death make me excited to talk about like what we're doing with this time. And so I want to kind of ask you both, like, what are you urgently living for right now? Like what kind of drives you? What's waking you up in the morning? Like, what are you thinking about? Like, what are you hoping to kind of urgently go after in this life season for yourselves?
Today it was this podcast.
Right answer.
I think right this very minute, it's figuring out how to use our platform. And we just partnered up with the charity for Pride Month. And so that's been really exciting, just to figure out fun ways to promote it, or fun ways to figure out how we're going to raise the most money. So for me, this past week has just been really exciting, thinking about how I'm going to give back, and just try to navigate that stuff.
Can you talk about what charity that is yet?
Yeah, we're doing the Trevor Project. Yeah, so that's like a reason to like wake up and be excited, and just trying to, it's in a way be creative and just figure out like what's the best way we can get the word out there.
But that is like, oh, go ahead, Joe. What were you
I was just gonna say it's nice to, whenever we do, I actually followed his footsteps. He kind of took the lead on that partnership. But in seeing, in communicating with those people that are going to help those collaborations happen, it's always, at least for me, really comforting to see how excited they are about your participation and your wanting to do it. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I think what you're maybe what it sounds like to me is you're coming to terms with the reality of the platform that you have now, right? That you have currency. The currency is this platform, is this popularity, is this power.
And it's funny because when that happens to you, you don't feel any different. I feel like I'm just as faking it as I was before. And suddenly people look to me to see what I have to say about things. And I'm like, no one cared before. Like, why are we, but.
Well, keep that as much as you can, because you'll be, it's harder when you drink the Kool-Aid and think you're supposed to have the answers. You're not supposed to have the answers. This is why I was so excited to talk to you both, because I remember when meeting you, there was such a, and don't take this, hopefully not in a weird way, there was a purity there, and not in a naivete way, in a way of just like, I can tell you're living on purpose right now. I can tell you're both really like enjoying what you're doing, enjoying each other, like enjoying this moment. Like that part is really infectious. So I think when like brands or organizations or programs like want to work with somebody, they want to work with exactly who you are. So that's your currency. Don't ever lose that or think you have to be anybody different than that. But it's amazing when you realize you can direct people to an amazing program like the Trevor Project, right? When you've got influence in a true way of getting people to think about things differently, especially during an awareness month as important as Pride. Let's end on that note. I'm kind of curious now, like, so if you could forecast into the future for yourselves, I know you want a long career doing what you love, and now maybe you're seeing lots of opportunities, but for you as people, as individuals, what is a legacy that you would hope to maybe leave? If we're going to talk about, I usually ask people what their perfect death is. So I may not ask you that today, although you feel free to answer if you've got an idea. But what would be your idea of a great legacy to leave once you are not here anymore?
A legacy, I know for me, something that I've always looked to are just people who are 100% their authentic self, and the comfortability of just living as themselves. And so I hope that's a legacy that I can just leave behind, is that just be yourself, because you'll be surprised where it can take you.
I think the legacy that I would like to leave behind would be leading with kindness. I feel like there's just so much hate currently in our world, and especially with the president of the United States being as volatile as he is. I find people just really like to hate on things, and I really would like to lead with more kindness and just trying to understand each other, because it's just too much, and it's not helpful at all to anyone to all team up and agree that we're all going to hate this artist, or we're all going to cancel this artist because they said something wrong. We all say something wrong every now and then, and we all can apologize and try to make up for it the best that we can. But I just want people to support each other more. It's the world. Life is too hard to try to tear each other down the way that people do. And I want to lead with that.
I love that. I think life is too hard and also life is too short. This is exactly why I wanted to have these conversations, because tomorrow is not promised. We have all of this moment right now is what we're creating. And I love the idea of leaving in your wake just by living an authentic life, the inspiration for others to do the same. And I love the idea that you can lead with kindness. You don't have to change no matter what your platform is or how much money's in the bank or how many titles are behind your name or on your resume. I think if that's like one thing we could get out in having this conversation is that this is your story to write and you're writing it beautifully right now. And, and it's taking twists and turns and, all those feelings you had, Frankie, in the early days. Like, I feel like that's one of the greatest things to remember is we have feelings because we're human. This is what life is all about. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And you're doing a really beautiful job, I think, of just being who you are in a crazy world and a crazy time. Yes. But I'm really excited to see what comes next and any way that I can help support your legacies. I'd love to do so.
Thank you. And ditto.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, guys. Also, do you have a favorite death? A way that you'd like to die?
Oh my God. Like literally just have never thought about it.
Well, now you will. I guarantee it will keep you up at night.
What's my perfect death?
Well, I want to say I want to be, I want to have a good circle of people that are around me. But I also don't want to really suffer.
Fair.
If I do have to suffer, if I do have to suffer from like an illness, I would hope that I have a circle of people around me that are making me feel comfortable.
Yes.
I don't know.
Agreed.
Yes, ditto.
But if it has to be quick, I don't want to feel it. I want to.
Agreed. Oh no, I want the death in the Notebook. My husband and I have decided, I want to that scene when they die in the Notebook where am I also spoiling this?
Holding each other?
Yes. Yeah. And they just go to sleep and then they never wake up, but they do it at the same time because I threaten my husband all the time. He's not allowed to die without me. So we have to do it at the same time. Oh I think it's not that I'm going to be able maybe I'll will that into being, but I do think it's important to, to talk about. Don't let it haunt you or anything, but you've got hopefully long, lovely lives to live. And I can't wait to be cheering you on along the way.
Thank you.
Welcome. Thanks, guys. Was I lying? Frankie and Joe are delicious. Look, they are these young, bright, lovely young men who are hopefully at the beginning of their lives, enjoying what they do in the world. And it's always interesting to have conversations around death and dying and loss and living and lessons learned when you're at a younger age in your life. But I appreciate how thoughtful they are, how earnest they are in wanting to do the right thing and to use their platforms with purpose and aligned with their values. I find them so refreshing, I guess, in this pretty cynical and sometimes really dark world. I think the characters that they're playing on this show are truly nothing short of revolutionary for kids programming and young adult programming. I think I'm just really looking forward to them being on our TV sets or in our media world for a long time to come. And I just was very excited to share them with you, and that sweetness and that soulfulness I know really came true. So it's always interesting. I know I asked them some questions that they normally probably don't get asked when they're doing their Disney press junkets, but I know that they're going to be thinking a lot about this, and I'm so glad that we all had a chance to talk together. All right, I'll see you guys soon. You've been listening to We're All Gonna Die Anyway with me, Jess Weiner. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. And you can also watch this podcast by checking out my YouTube channel for filmed episodes, behind-the-scenes footage, and all other kinds of amazing video goodies. And of course, you can always visit me at jessweiner.com. We're All Gonna Die Anyway is exec produced by me and produced by Lauren Chavez Myers. Our episodes are recorded, filmed, and edited by Jeff Franklin and Adam Lippert of B Film. And our original amazing music is by Becca and Destiny Petrell. As always, I want to send a special thank you to the love of my life, the amor de mi vida, Felipe Lopez. And if you love this podcast, please make sure to tell your friends, subscribe, and leave a review at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Play, or wherever you get your podcasts. Most importantly, if there is something that stood out to you from today's episode, I want to hear about it. So if you want to share your own story, leave a comment, ask a question, please send me an email at podcast@jesswiener.com. I can't wait to hear from you. Bye, babies.